Hello and welcome back to Tianjin. I'm delighted to be joined by Claudia Salerno, who is the Special Envoy for Climate Change for Venezuela. Claudia, perhaps we should start on a positive note, and you can outline some of Venezuela's hopes for this process and what you'd like to see in an ideal world.
An ideal world would represent for us the non-repetition of what happened last year in Copenhagen. So hopefully we will reach Cancun having draft decisions, set of decisions in all the issues of the Bali Action Plan agenda, and as well as under the KP. For us, balance means both tracks and decisions in both of them. So hopefully after Tianjin we will have a concrete result to work on Cancun toward what we consider would be a path to a legally binding agreement that would reinforce Kyoto Protocol and will not kill it. So in that sense, we are one of the few countries that keeps hopes because, as I like to say, as my country strongly objected the Copenhagen Accord, well, so-called Copenhagen Accord, because it was a Copenhagen disaccord, much of it. The same day that we said no to that accord, we actually said yes to the one that we were going to produce. So my country is engaged in the process openly, transparently, with a huge sense of duty and a huge sense of commitment to the environment. We are not facing this process taking care of our economies or our economical interests or our personal interests as a country, but looking forward to reach to our partners to an agreement that would be good for the environment. So we don't want any political agreement, we want a good agreement.
Okay, so that's Venezuela's objectives in an ideal world. Where do we stand at the moment in terms of these objectives and in terms of the process here? What's the progress?
The progress is the understanding that it is a complex issue that is not going to be solved in a little room by 26 countries in 48 hours. Every single country now understands that they need to do their best to solve the huge difference that we have. And I think Mexico's incoming presidency has been very skilled in develop this extraordinary atmosphere of trust that was very difficult to believe that at this stage we will be actually believing one in each other's again. And when you listen, the G77 still strong and together and stronger than ever, putting forward concrete proposals to move forward. Everybody is there committed to the result. And then you start seeing interesting movement from the partners, decide to get together to those developing countries that want to move. And then at the end, hopefully we are going to end in a situation in which everybody's going to be able to do something without regarding what the others will do to move. But as we said yesterday in our the plenary statement at the beginning of the session, this is not the time to people to continue saying that they will wait to see what the other will do to then know if they are going to be able to commit. Now is the time to every country to be responsible enough to say that this is what they are going to do and this is how far they are gonna get, and then do it without waiting the others. And I think we are getting there. The atmosphere is good. I think even knowing that it's very complex, the tones of the discussions are being very rich, very calm. Even when we are touching delicate issues, the approach is very constructive. And we had our first discussion on mitigation today. And as far as I heard, I think we are getting to areas of convergence. So I think for now, those that don't want to move will come out, and it's going to be up to them, and then they will have to be responsible enough to tell the world that they were not ready. And as far as I know, there is just one that keeping being not ready to do anything.
Should we guess, or
you can?
Is it the USA that you
yeah,
feel?
as I said yesterday at the plenary as well. We actually rephrased one phrase that was pronounced by President Obama in 2008 when he said that denial could not be a good response and delay was not an option, and that we need to solve this once and for all. And so we said, okay, I trust that Obama will actually in 2010 make his words to become an instruction to his negotiators to engage constructively in the discussions and to unblock the issues and then to solve this once and for all.
Isn't one of the issues here, though, is that you work for Chavez? He's your line manager, if you like, and he's very powerful in Venezuela. And you're telling me just before we came on air that you kind of in a privileged position as a negotiator because you can basically do as your morals require you. Obama isn't so lucky. He faces a very difficult domestic situation, and whilst he's come out and said that he's desperate to lead on climate, actually isn't he being hobbled by some complicated politics within the US? Is it fair to hold him responsible for the difficulties we're facing?
You mean US responsible?
Well, Obama specifically, and the US administration isn't the difficulty really that people in the US don't want to move on this front.
But actually, governments are there to lead. And when they are called, so they make the world call them leaders, it's because they are going to lead. Otherwise, they just have to step out and let the others move. I mean, they cannot just ask the rest of the world to wait until they have an internal electoral process to know if they will be at that moment able or not juridically to engage. I mean, that's so absurd to hold the world to have an agreement. Because actually, and this is the ironical part of it, KP is not moving as they said because...
That's the Kyoto Protocol for obvious.
Exactly, the Kyoto Protocol. Because the party that is not party of the Kyoto Protocol cannot engage. That's so absurd and is politically unacceptable. So my country is free enough to say, hey guys, if you are not ready, because they were not ready in 97, and we move. And actually we have a protocol that is not perfect, could be in haste, but we have that. And now, actually, my country, at least, we're not going to wait for the US. And actually, we don't care. If they are not ready, well, they haven't been ready for, forever. And the world move and the world engage in the protection of conditions that allow us to live. Because as we said also to them, there is no GDP in the world that can protect you for extreme weather conditions. And they had one extreme event in 2005, and with all the money in the world, and with all the power that they said that they have, they still didn't overcome all the consequences of one extreme event. Go figure what this means for little islands, small island states that have to endure 5, 6 extreme events a year. And this same country that cannot manage one event that happened to them are asking the world to just be patient because they are going to have elections and they cannot control their Senate. That's unacceptable for who makes the world call the leader of the world. I mean, if that's leading, I don't want to be led by that.
Is there a dilemma that we face here, though, in that if we ask, if we say to the US, either you lead or get out the way, which is essentially the message, if that happens and they get out the way and they drop out the process, we're not going to have a climate deal that does what we need it to do. We need the US on board here, don't we, in order to achieve the kinds of emissions cuts that the science demands.
I totally agree with you. We need them on board. We need everybody on board. We need every single body on board. But if they are not ready, we cannot. In the other condition said, if US is not there, we're going to have nothing. Because that's the other extreme. I would like to say that they are not in the way of nothing, but they are with us here, together, walking together somewhere. I don't want to see them confronting me in the middle of a way, but actually I prefer to think that we are all here walking together somewhere. Because we are all human beings, I mean.
And you've mentioned the importance of countries pushing ahead with action on climate change, regardless of what other countries are doing. What actions is Venezuela taking? What are your priorities domestically?
Actually, Venezuela has an approach very particular because to set a commonality with the US, the only 2 countries in the world that never had mechanisms for markets or CDM, or the application of CDM, was US because it's not party of the Kyoto Protocol, and Venezuela because we don't agree with them. Mm-hmm. We don't like the approach of this so-called mercantilization to convert nature in a commodity.
So the market-based approach of this kind of clean development mechanism.
Market-based approaches. We are against them because we think they need further review, because the point is not to make rich companies to pay for or entitle those that have money to be able to pay and then pollute, because then the principle is completely changed. It's not the polluter paid, but the one who pays can pollute. Mm-hmm. And we cannot accept that kind of thinking. In our country, we never ask money for anything. Venezuela is engaged in a process with the strong commitments to mitigation in the areas that we can control, noting that our country is a country that has more of the 40% of the territory is a natural park, and almost the 60% of the territory is under some kind of administrative figure of protection, more strength or less strength. We have more than 52 hectares of kilometers square of forest, natural forest, not plantations, but natural forest, and our country makes part of the Amazonian basin. So we actually can say that we are an environmental country. We were the first Latin American country that actually built a Ministry of Environment in 1976. So was the first Minister of Environment in Latin America was in Venezuela. So we have a very long tradition of environmental commitments. Now we are doing projects in reforestation that we call Mission Arbol. And through that, all the projects that the country made, we actually involve communities in the projects, and they have to agree and to be integral part of the development of any project to mitigate. Venezuela also, 3 years ago, we started a national program to substitution of bulb lamps, and in the last months we reached the target of 60 million bulbs change in 1 month. Mm-hmm.